but we do need to dive off to our first topic. And dive is a very apt name for it, or at least segue, because it flopped. It really sunk at the box office.
Like a fish on
Aria,
out of
listen to
water.
me. Your movie is going to be a flop. It's a mess.
Oh dear, oh dear. But look, basically what's happened is, and this has happened many, many times, look, we're talking about The Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid had a reported budget initially of like $250 million. It's not the case. It cost nearly $300 million, basically. Absolutely staggeringly high. And that's only the reported budget. That's a production budget here in the UK. They would have took it back to the States and added some more money to that with some VFX work. We know what Disney do. They do their VFX work up until the last minute. And, you know, and then there's the marketing budget on top of it. This movie would have lost somewhere in the region of close to about $200 million, quite frankly. Like, it's staggeringly high. So the short of it is, we don't really need to get into this article specifically to talk about it. Forbes have been doing some really good digging work, and obviously they realize that uncovering stuff about Disney's is good for their click-through rate, and it is, because people love to see the lies exposed at Disney. They really do. And if I'd love to have got Mikey on for this, because as an investor, you know, a shareholder, I think to myself, how annoyed would I be? Because basically what it is, guys, is that the reported budget was $245, $250 million, and it's come in well above that, $300 million. Yeah, sure, they took a tax rebate, a reimbursement from the UK government, but that's still not it. It only crossed, I think it was like $560 million. It was a monumental flop, bigger than we would have thought. And this isn't even the half of it. But it's funny because it's consistent. Well, one, it's naivety from the mainstream media believing these things. But then also, it's everyone else believing. I mean, look, I don't want to keep bringing it up, but I will keep bringing it up when it's poignant. This movie, objectively, looked fucking terrible. And I mean that with the utmost sincerity. It looked absolutely atrocious.
Yeah.
And it was entirely CGI. It looked utterly awful. And then you had a movie like The Creator for $80 million, which looked absolutely exceptional. So anyway, the short of it is Disney hiding more lies. If I was an investor, if I was a shareholder, I would be super pissed because they're just throwing money down the toilet. They also changed the formula from their live action movies, which did make money, because we know that the Disney movies had a history of making money, right? Those live action remakes, a substantial amount of them crossed $1 billion.
Yeah.
They changed the formula. They cry racism, and it doesn't even cross $600 million. It's a joke. It's a farce. But it's funny. They're being exposed. And I hand it on over to you guys to talk about it. Andre, I know you're tight for time, so let's get to you first, bud.
Yeah, well, this is hardly surprising, is it? What I think is like more interesting is that I would have liked to see it flop even more, because on this one I think the rest of the world did really, really well, but it unfortunately did fairly well in the US. By that I mean the rest of the world did well by not going to see it and withholding the money. But in America, too many people went to see it, so it is a flop, especially at this budget. But it's not the kind of flop that it should be, because the movie ended its run on 500 million something at the global box office, which at the production boxes of nearly 300 million, that's a loss of more than 200 million. However, the worldwide box office really should have ended with the number 4 in front of it, or number 3. And that I didn't is because too many people in the States went to see it. And as you mentioned, the movie changed its formula. It wasn't just the choice of the lead, although that is symptomatic. Like the actress, she did fine. It's just like everything, a ridiculous bird song and it's just everything is just wrong.
I think,
and they're doing things the wrong way, and I'm happy that it's flopping the way that it did. That right there, that's the one inspired casting and the one good decision in the entire movie. that right there.
I'll give you that.
I'll give them credit for that. If you were going to remake The Little Mermaid, which there was no reason to do, but if you were
That's
going
fine.
to do it, yeah, see there, got some love from into comics. Those guys are
I
awesome.
didn't know I was in there.
Yeah, sometimes I go in there like, oh wow, this is a cool story, and I'm like, oh damn, this is our story. There's our video. They were quick. That's Friday actually. Yeah, massive kudos to John Flint about and his entire team. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
my thought is that this flopped big time. It deserved it because the budget is higher than it had any right to be, and I'm disappointed that it didn't flop more. Send the message even more home.
Yeah, agreed.
It made $569 million in the box office.
Yeah, that's 200 more than it deserved.
Indeed, and it's still $150 million underwater.
Wait. I love the puns.
I mean, if
Love a
this
good
thing
pun.
right here, if this had like lost, like an active loss of 3, maybe 400 million, I mean, I would have been a message to really be sent, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's the problem. They're getting mixed messages with this, and I mean, I wish they would just look at it as, wow, if we had just casted this in a way that made sense and done this in a way that made sense, this could have been $1 billion hit, just like The Lion King and Aladdin.
Which I will defend. I think that Aladdin was actually really good. I had fun with that movie.
But instead, they went against the grain and decided to call everybody istophobes from the very start. And as you said, Andre, the one thing it has going for it is a good portion of its box office is in the U.S., so that's a larger portion of the money they do generally get to keep. And this one was one they did keep in theaters long enough that they should be able to keep most of it. I mean, will it have lost them as much money at the end of the day as it could have? Absolutely not. But I still don't see how it made any money, really. Because I'm sure we're only a couple months away from Valiant, Renegade, and others kind of digging into more about what the real cost of this movie was.
Well, and that's the other problem, right? Because the numbers we got were still from 2022, summer 2022. So I mean, and those numbers weren't even close to being, the final numbers. And
I don't believe this movie only cost $250 million to make.
It didn't.
There's no way it cost at least $350 more.
It cost well over $300 million. Yeah,
I would say at least $350.
Yeah, and so, but you look at it and you're like, okay, even with the casting, even if you wanted to make that casting choice, and again, I think the McCarthy was a decent choice. I agree with Andre there, but I think that if you look at it, even with the casting, what they didn't need to do was vary from the story. Had they done what they did, as Mr. H suggested, and just did a shot-for-shot remake, I would say that this film would have done just fine. And look, the most telling numbers are the fact, and this is now the new barometer, folks. If you look at a film and the international markets do not make up 2/3 of the box office, your film is doomed. It doesn't matter. Then in this situation, it was less than 1-for-1 domestic to international. And the UK, you guys gave away $58 million in tax money in incentives.
Oh, don't remind me, mate.
And
I'm about to flip this table. Hulk the fuck out.
And your box office earnings in the UK was $34 million.
I know, but we led the international market on the creator this weekend.
You also led in. This is embarrassing. You led the international market on Little Mermaid as well.
All right, steady on. Less of the bigotry. It's telling. So when you look at those numbers and you see that the domestic market is outperforming the international market, by a few $1 million, then you have a film that's in trouble. You have a film that hugely, massively. But it's funny, isn't it? Like I say, those previous Disney movies, and this is why it's interesting to talk about stuff like this when we learn more and more about it with budgets and things. So those previous Disney live action movies, I think The Lion King was at $1.6 billion, like staggeringly high numbers. Right?
Yeah. I mean,
$1.6 billion.
And all Jon Favreau had to do for that was recreate the cartoon in CGI.
CG. Yeah, and then just get voice actors. Right, that was it. I wonder to myself whether this is a message that Disney's going to take home or not, because Well, evidently not, because
because they just
Snow White,
they
for
got
instance.
everything else in the way coming out. Bambi, Snow White, all that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a total joke. But I do wonder, like, how much money they're going to need to lose for them to realise that, yeah, we need to obviously get back to what we were doing before. But it's fascinating stuff, nonetheless. Fascinating stuff. And it's significantly more, anyway, than the $300 million, because you've also got the stuff which is unaccounted for, but also the fact that they're being sued by a former set designer that worked on that film. Fucking joke. Absolute jokers. So, I don't know.
Set designer for what? Not being paid or what? Something else?
No. She injured herself. She shattered her wrist.
I think I heard about that. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, really quite bad, to be honest. Not a small thing. Pretty horrendous stuff. And soon for a small amount, they've already accepted fault, but they're like, but we're disputing the amount. It's like,
for changing your life. For changing,
and it's a small amount she's suing for. It's not a lot. I think it's like $100,000 or something like that.
It's not a life-changing number. And her
for Disney, it's chump change.
Yeah, and her life's been permanently changed, right? So,
yeah, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Right. Well, anyway, fun little intro to get started on episode 69.
69, dude.